Andrew. I'm Tyler Carney, and I'm going to first begin with an anecdote and present a question with that. So, when I was 14, and this is an experience many others, especially in Iowa, it's a big issue in Iowa, can relate with. I found out that my mother had a drug abuse problem, specifically methamphetamine. And I was sent to live at a youth shelter, specifically the one actually just a couple blocks away from here. So, and there wasn't much legal backing that helped me out. I was placed in a youth shelter without any support from the government, from anyone really, because all of my family had also had issues and I wasn't able to live with them. So when I was sent there, it's a nonprofit organization, as you know. Their budget is extremely low. The way it ran was we weren't able to do anything. We got whatever snacks were donated to us, whatever food was donated to us, and same with another shelter that I had transferred to afterwards, except that one was in Des Moines with a slightly larger budget, it was more of a facility rather than a home like this one. So the question I'm presenting to you is, do you have any form of plan to have a larger budget for foster homes, group homes, shelters, anything to support youth with troubled parents or with a troubled past?
Yes. There's Taylor, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I mean, that's an awesome story. How's the family now, and how many years ago was this? How old were you?
This was actually just about a couple of years ago, but my mother is about a year and a half single back now. I'm going to ask you a question. May I shake your hand?
Oh, yeah, of course, man. I was going to give you a hug. I was going to run down, but I didn't. Oh, man. Thank you for sharing.
I'm 15 now.
He was 15? I thought he was older somehow.
Can you take a picture for me?
Right? Was I the only one? You know what it is, the facial hair. The facial hair.
Thank you, Andrew.
So first I want to talk about the substance abuse problem that led to your being at the shelter. The opiate epidemic has destroyed so many families, lives, communities, meth as well. It was right here in Iowa where a high school senior said to me that his classmates had fentanyl patches on their arms and are addicted, and what can we do? Like that we have to do more. Now, one of the truths about this situation is that this did not happen by itself. This is a disease of capitalism run amok, where our drug companies, Purdue Pharma, dispensed millions of opiate prescriptions and said this is a non-addictive painkiller wonder drug. And it turns out it was terribly addictive. And that ended up morphing into heroin and fentanyl. There was one point when there were more opiate prescriptions in the state of Ohio than there were human beings in the state of Ohio. And our government looked at that and said that was appropriate. Eventually, our government got around to fining the drug company $635 million, Purdue Pharma. Sounds like a lot, right? Then you realize they made $30 billion, and that was a 2% fine. And they killed tens of thousands of Americans, and we're still wrestling with it to this day. So with that as a backdrop, we have to come clean and say, look, this was an epic government failure at the highest levels. We screwed up, and we helped facilitate or at least turn a blind eye to the drug companies destroying all of these families and lives. So now we need to take all these resources and try and give people a fighting chance to recover and get stronger and more whole. This is not a money problem because no amount of money gives people their loved ones back, gets people off drugs, but money cannot be the obstacle. We need to take those tens of billions of dollars the drug companies made off of us, claw it all back, and then put it right back into our communities to help people get off the drugs. As for what happens when families are struggling, I ran a nonprofit for 7 years. And you know the toughest thing about running a nonprofit is that you raise some money, but then your needs are always much, much higher than your budget. And I've been to churches around the country. And one thing I've noticed is that the churches in affluent areas have more resources than the churches in not so affluent areas. And I thought to myself, it's like, well, it kind of should be the opposite, because if anyone needs like actual resources and services, it's like the place that's struggling. Whereas like the rich neighborhood, it's like, do they really need all this stuff? And so I 100% would make sure that that shelter has adequate resources, that the kids actually have food to eat that isn't donated, and that you can actually maybe even have a budget to live life like a kid, because kids should not be trapped in a shelter thinking that that they can't actually go out and enjoy themselves the way a 13-year-old ought to. But I'll make that right, Taylor, and thank you for sharing.